Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's Friday afternoon. I'm Paul John Dykes. This is Kevin Graham, and we're here to talk for 1 hour on all things Celtic. Get involved in the comments section. It's been a tough old week, Kev, and we're back to domestic bliss at the weekend. Is that the way it works for
Is it
Celtic fans these
domestic?
days?
Is it domestic bliss or is it domestic monotony? I didn't ken. At the moment, I'm looking for. I remember talking to Patrick when I done the Wednesday one, and just after the last international break, and I remember saying to him, having a look at this run of games, if we at 3 o'clock after playing Ross County have won every league game, are in the semi-final of the cup, and have got 3 points in the Champions League, I am going to be very happy. And I can't go back on that.
That's fair enough.
When you had a look at the run of fixtures,
Yeah.
But it doesn't take away what was. It was embarrassing. I think it's Brendan Rodgers' worst European performance as Celtic manager. Having a look back on it, and during that first half, you know the song. It's got a few names. The song. Willie McBride or the Greenfields of France or No Man's Land as well. It's got 3 titles when you actually look into it. And the chorus, did you go down with the last post and chorus the chorus of the song, And I kept on thinking that in that first half. We were like the last scene in Blackadder where they send everybody over the top just to get machine gunned, And it was sore. It was a sore one. But really, we were really dreadful on the night, and that has been Brendan Rodgers' worst European performance, I think, as a Celtic manager. Really has been. But I really don't think he sent his team out to be like that. I really do not. But there's 4 guys when they do the data analysis or the video analysis after it. There's 4 guys that will really get their bums absolutely booted. I really
You pulled
do
that
think
back pretty skillfully.
I did. I
12:30. This is a family show.
Yes. And the sort of day with the setup and the shape of the team. Because I went and had funnily enough, I think I'm a bit of a sadist here, but went back and had a wee bit to look back at the gubbin against Barcelona, the 2 gubbins against PSG, and also the 2 games they played against Man City. Because one of the things that was bothering me was folks saying, "Oh, Rodgers has never changed. He's never changed." So I went back to have a look at these games, and I would really say I went back to have a look at them because I really did think that Tuesday night was the worst. But I wanted some wee evidence to back this up because he's talking about they were nearly 7, 8 years ago, So this that Brendan Rodgers doesn't change is false. Against PSG, when we got beat 7-1 in Paris, he played a 3-5-1-1. He played 3 at the back that night. When we got beat 5-0 at Celtic Park, he played a 4-5-1. When we got beat against Barcelona, he played a 5-4-1 in the new camp. And in the 2 games against Man City, the away leg, which was a dead rubber at that point, he played a 4-1-4-1. And the game where we gave Man City a game, he played his favoured 4-2-3-1.
Right.
So there has been changes of shape. When you have a look at the data and the not the satellite data, but the positions, with the positions, there's one thing it becomes clear.
Is that the heat map you're talking about?
The heat maps and the average positions of the team. There's one thing that becomes very, very clear against any elite opposition that we actually play is we end up too far apart. We end up too far apart on the pitch. When you look at everybody, they're all closer together. And this is where I think when they have a look at the video analysis, Engels, Kuhn, Bernardo and Taylor will get absolutely roasted for their positioning on the pitch during that game. Engels is our furthest forward player.
Yeah.
He's given Alistair Johnson no protection whatsoever. The gap between him and Kalmack is virtually about 20 or 30 yards. And on the other side in the first half, Bernardo and Taylor are exactly the same. exactly the same. And you actually notice it in the second half when they bring on the subs. Callum McGregor starts getting a bit of a hand because Hatate and Baye are actually close to him.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually close to him, given that. And I think in the second half, he actually saw the kind of shape I think Brendan was going for. And that's where he says the team got spooked, unless he did tell them to put. If he's telling them to push that high up the park, then he deserves everything that he's going to get. But I didn't think he sent them out there to actually go. I think the players sometimes go into a sort of memory mode, and this is where I should be. And aye,
The thing
it
for
was
me,
sore.
Kev,
It was sore,
I,
but it was sore.
it's always going to have a lasting effect. We spoke about a European hangover. We'll be talking about Ross County, but yes, you can set a team out in a specific way or shape. Surely, players are not robotic in the sense that if something's not working and you're playing, it's not working as a footballer, as an individual. You've also got the senior pros on the park, those players who have had European campaigns under their belts, Kev, who know how a quality side, because we've been hammered by Dortmund this season, Atletico Madrid the season before, and Real Madrid the season before that. This is not new. We know that once you enter the realms of that level and that standard of football team, that the margin for error is so small. And if something's not working, you need to adapt in game. Now, obviously, everybody focuses on Rodgers there, as if every single person on the park is doing exactly what they've been told to do. But if it's not working, surely there needs to be in-match changes, not just by the gaffer, but by the likes of McGregor as well on the park.
This is why I'm saying it's the worst, because the in-game management was shocking. There was
Sure.
no in-game management. And you hear McGregor going, sometimes the players have to take responsibility, go, this is not working, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. The team bottled it, basically. The team looked shell-shocked. And the team looked shell-shocked. And see, when you go 2-1 down that quick, there should have been a wee 10-minute spell there, and went, wait, hold on. But we panicked and tried to chuck forward to get back into the game. Instead of just going, by the way, we're playing the best team that we're going to face, that we've faced this season, possibly the best team that we'll face all season. There should have been a wee spell to go, let's keep it tight. And how do you keep it tight? You keep the ball, and we just couldn't keep the ball because we weren't close enough together. But
you're right.
We weren't there as a unit. We were not there as a unit.
The thing is, though, you remember the criticism that Strachan got on the sidelines for his laptop, the iPad. The reason he's got that is he's watching this in game, Kev. It's not as though
he's getting that data.
Live
getting
data.
that. He's getting it.
Yeah.
And they've all got these the vests that they wear, the bras that they wear that are given I can't remember the name of the tracking data.
We'll go with bras.
They'll have the tracking data. No, I remember the Hearts manager. What was his name? Stendhal.
Yeah.
And he got absolutely slaughtered for tying his back line with ropes in between them so they couldn't move too far away from each other. I was thinking about that this morning. I says, maybe we should actually put in their bras the electric shock hingies, and when they go too far away from each other, they get a shock and they have to jump back.
The shock should be somebody hollering at them, somebody yelling at them because it's so obvious that they're making that error, Kev. I mean, these are the things that if you and I, who observe a football game from a fan's perspective, which is why this is called fan media. We're not doing it with a narrative. We're not doing it to appease an editor or distribution or circulation sales. We're doing it as fans, Kev, with the best interest of the club at heart. If we can see all these things, to the untrained eye, we're not analysts. We're not ex-professional footballers or coaches. We're fans. And if we can see it, this is a big thing that I take from it, then the experts at Celtic Football Club have got to see it. Brendan Rodgers, a student of the game, will be able to see it. But the disappointment is not seeing it as it's happening. I think, you can come back and you can do all your video analysis, which has been happening in the second half of this week, and prepare for the weekend and then the future fixtures in the Champions League. That's all fair and well because you're looking at what we did wrong. But that's reactive, isn't it? You want them to be more proactive in game.
Even waiting to half time's reactive. As soon as you go to 3-1, your manager should
too open.
then be going like that. Right, I want this at 3-1 at half time, and how can I make that happen? There's one point, I can't remember if it was you that pointed out yesterday. It was Schmeichel shouting at Greg Taylor.
Yeah.
3 times. And the it was 3 times he had been caught in the wrong position when Schmeichel was trying to play the ball out. So obviously that's there. There was another one as well who I thought was absolutely dreadful, was Kuhn. Kuhn was his work and pressing off the ball was absolutely shocking.
I know.
And then he's not giving Alistair Johnson a dig out at all. And Engels is not giving Johnson a dig out. And you go, this is dreadful. And it was dreadful for Rodgers. Absolutely dreadful for Rodgers that it took him to half time to make any sort of changes whatsoever. There is, again, there is a point that Brendan Rodgers, the elite manager. Let's talk about the elite manager stuff, eh? And I think what Tuesday night proved to me is, like other decent managers, he's managed at an elite level, but he is not an elite manager. He cannot react in game like an elite manager. Well, you look at a couple of years back, you look at Arteta, like at Arsenal at Man City. Aye, they've got an identity style of play, but he tweaks what he going to play Man City. What's the Real Madrid manager? That's just completely went over my head. The Real Madrid manager, when they played Man City the last time in the semi-final of the Champions League, they basically sat in a low block because they knew this is what we're going to need today to win the game. Elite managers, yes, they've got principles and their teams have got identities and style, but elite managers will go with the flow and they'll respect the levels that they're actually playing at.
The manager you're thinking about is Carlo Ancelotti.
Aye, I couldn't remember his name there. Cheers.
What I always find interesting about him is look at his managerial career, right? Reggiana, Parma, Juve, AC Milan, Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Napoli, Everton, and Real Madrid.
Everton jumps out there, eh? Everton.
It does. It does. It leaps off the page. But listen, we're not going to be talking all day about the negative aspect of what happened in Dortmund. We're going to be linking this in to going ahead and getting back into the groove against Ross County. But at the same time, Kev, with one eye on not allowing ourselves as fans to just be satisfied with that, because we're continually demanding progress in Europe. And what you made a good point there. Anybody who was asked the question coming into this game against Ross County, where you want Celtic Football Club to be at this moment in time, to go and win every single game in the league without conceding a goal, to progress into the semi-final with the League Cup, and to have points on the board, 3 points, and a win in the Champions League, I'm pretty sure every one of us would take it, Kev. We would have. It's the nature of the defeat. Now, see if Celtic had gone out there the other night and we had been at the peak of our powers, and Kuhn was playing the way he's been playing all season, and every single player on that park played to their maximum, there's a chance we would have still got beat. And this is the thing, right? Aye, there's a chance we would have still got beat, and maybe even still got beat fairly comfortably. You know, it might have been 3 or 4-1. I think the big frustration for me is the manner in which we got beat. Like you said, we were not at the races, we were not at our best, and there were individual errors for many of the goals, albeit the finishing was next level. If you want to talk about elite footballers, look at the finishing. Unbelievable from any angle, any distance. The finishing was superb. So I think it would have been, you know, licking your wounds a wee bit at 3 or 4-1. There's loads of 4-0s and 4-1s and all that in the fixtures in this league. It's a very open Champions League format, Kev. You really are going to have a very definitive 3-tier system in this league. You're going to have the elite teams.
You can see it just now.
Absolutely.
And we are cannon fodder to the elite level. If you have a look at what's already happened to Zagreb, and I went and had a look at Zagreb. Zagreb played a low block in Munich and still got beat 9-2.
Yeah.
They went and sat. You look at young boys, they got beat 5-0. Well, even Atletico Madrid getting beat 4-0. That can happen at this level.
Yeah.
And what have we got to find is, I think we went into that game with a load of confidence because we thought, yes, this is the time. This is the time that this team looks absolutely solid. We're flying. We bet a couple of big scalps in pre-season, this and that. And Tuesday night was the reality check where we're at the point where we've got to start beating the teams that are on the same level with us
Mm-hmm.
and not being utterly dreadful against the elite teams. Let's just start with not being utterly dreadful when we go to Bergamo in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Then see where it takes us. It
Mm-hmm.
might not get us 3 points, but if we're not utterly dreadful, we'll go, right then. Dortmund was a free hit, Bergamo's a free hit as well. But I just do not want us to be dreadful in Bergamo.
You don't want anything more than 4, in terms of the elite clubs, the clubs who are going to be in that top tier, the top 8 in the group. You do not want to get hammered 7-1, 9-2. These are fixtures and results that we've seen so far, 5-0. The 2 biggest disappointments before we move on, and there's some great comments coming through.
But,
2
but
biggest
what we've
disappointments.
got to remember, Paul, before we actually wrap up this European debacle, is Dortmund done to us what we done to Bratislava.
Yeah.
And Bratislava and the teams at the level of Bratislava and Young Boys and Bruges are the teams we're competing with.
Mm-hmm. Of course, absolutely.
So that is what we've got to keep in mind. But it doesn't. But we should call out the players and the management for what is for them an embarrassing performance on
Absolutely
Tuesday night.
is. It wasn't good enough.
I
It was
don't think
not
it's
good enough.
embarrassing for me as a fan. I think the Celtic support done themselves absolutely proud
Aye.
across there. But it's embarrassing for the players and for the coach and the management staff. They were completely found out, and it's them that's got to have a look in the mirror.
You know this, Kev, we all kind of digest different types of content. The way that we view media these days is completely changed from even 10 years ago. And there are a lot of phenomenal channels on YouTube. The way that my day is kind of made up in terms of Acsom, to be honest with you, I don't digest a lot of other Celtic content. There's some cracking guys out there who I've got good relationships with. It's just that when I'm watching content, it's very much a means of seeing how other creators do things in other genres. But the one show that I do watch a lot of is the overlap with the Stick to Football show in particular. Something I would recommend. I think it's excellent. But any of these sit-down interview shows that you see with ex-footballers, Kev, a lot of them have an experience where at some stage in their career, they either join a side or they're in a particular game and they realise one of 2 things. Either they're not at that level or they need to do this to get to that level. And it's almost like a shock to the system. And I think a lot of our players would have taken that the other night. The 2 biggest disappointments for me were Engels and Kuhn. And for a few different reasons. Kuhn, because his form's been excellent this season. He turned into the Kuhn of last season the other night. He was like a rabbit in the headlights when he got that opportunity, Kev, to actually score a goal. For me, he had a lot more to prove than many of the other players on the park for Celtic because he's going back to Germany. He has stated he wants to be a German international footballer. Right. After that game, if he was to look in the mirror, does he think that he's at that level coming up against a team like Dortmund? He has had opportunities at Ajax, Bayern Munich previously and Leipzig as well, where it's no worked out. He's ended up as a reserve team player and he's had to go and create his career elsewhere in Austria. So there comes a point in a footballer's career where they step up to a level, Kev, and they might not be at that level. And that might be going through Kuhn's head, in the days following that game. Engels, the disappointment with Engels is because we signed him for this type of game. We signed him to be that midfield player who gave us something different in terms even just the athleticism and the combative nature of him. And he was poor. Now he's 21, absolutely. But the reason we brought him in was for this competition. And I said it yesterday, we didn't bring him in to get through against Falkirk in the quarterfinals of the League Cup. Let's be honest. So they were 2 of the big disappointments. And I hope that the character and the personality of the Celtic players are in the category of saying, right, I look completely uncomfortable at that level. What do I need to do to get to that level so that I'm competing, Kev? I mean, this is the big thing. Because you're looking at, right, what did we do in the pre-season that might have weakened the side? Well, I don't think Hart for Schmeichel, we can decide, and we'll come back to Schmeichel. O'Reilly for Engels, because O'Reilly was embedded in the team, etc. What difference would it have made if Matt O'Reilly was in that midfield? Seriously, Kev, because the whole team was dysfunctional, wasn't it?
It wouldn't have made any difference. And I heard some folk when we're discussing the game, like, guys on my supporters bus WhatsApp and all that, go, we should have signed an half centre half. Signing an half centre half wasn't going to make any difference either. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever, because yes, it might have made signing an half centre half could make a difference against the teams that are on your level, but signing an half centre half to make the difference against your Dortmunds, right? We haven't got 60, 70 million pounds to spend.
No.
You're looking to sign a peak Van Dijk to make any difference, and that is not going to happen. And so the only things we can do is improve as a unit.
Yes.
And that was one thing that actually came out Tuesday night, that we weren't a unit on that pitch. And I do blame the players, and I do blame the manager for his in-game management as well. We were not a unit on that pitch. But I'm sure when they've done the video analysis on Wednesday afternoon, then they're back into training Thursday, back today, they'll be fine. The attitude will be fine, because there's a good vibe about that group. If when you're going back to that, when you're talking about Kuhn and Engels, they're young enough. They're young enough to go, right, this is what we need to do at this level to get to that level. And Engels had a dreadful game, but I'm not chucking him out. I'm not chucking him out with the bat. I'm not chucking any of the players out with the hangman, because it was a horrible night for every single one of them, apart from Kasper Schmeichel. But Joe Ledley, remember what Joe Ledley says when he says, I went through my whole football career thinking I was a good football player until I played Barcelona.
Yes.
Then I realised I couldn't play football.
He's one of the players I'm talking about. Yeah,
that was exactly his words.
Yeah.
He says, then I realised I couldn't play football.
And he likened it to the Wales scenario as well, Kev, whereby as a team, you know, until a certain thing happened and a few players came to the fore, like Gareth Bale, as a team, he was going to chuck international football, because not just him as an individual, but as a team going into these games against proper nations, Kev, really, really strong nations, he was like, we're just not good enough for this. And he actually had a conversation with Neil Lennon when he was at Celtic, and he said, I'm going to chuck international football. And he was mid-20s at the time. He was 24, 25, Kev. And it was Lenny that spoke him out of it. And he was so happy that he did, because what then happened with the Wales team is that they got some proper, like, world-class players in that squad, and they done so well, didn't they?
One of the best things to come out of it, you've seen the difference between the European-wide, worldwide media, rather than the myopic media in Scotland who have just used this to batter Celtic. Those that have got no bigoted skin in the Scottish game have went like that. Every one of them says Brendan needs to respect the levels of the step up from Scotland to Europe. Yeah. Every one of them have says that. Then every one of them went like that. Celtic were really good against Bratislava. That's where they are. They're not. They shouldn't be competing against Dortmund. We shouldn't be expecting them to compete against Dortmund. But when you hear guys like Martin Cohen and all of that, Joe Cole go like that, we've got to respect the levels in Europe. But they understand the problems that we face when we step up that level. And it's time for our manager to step up and respect the levels, as they call it, as well. Because better teams than us respect levels.
Yeah.
So
see the marker, Kev, the marker of that's as bad as it's going to get. Don't let it happen again.
Hopefully.
Bottle the disappointment, bottle the anger, bottle the frustration, and let that fuel you for other similar type games. When you're coming up against Atalanta away, Aston Villa away, let's not forget, strong team. You know, and you're kind of thinking the fixture, the layout of the fixtures are going to be kind to us, I hope. That's the marker. But listen, we talk, and we have spoken now, Kev, for almost 8 years about European progression. What does it look like for Celtic? And I remember you and I used to disagree with it, because from day one in 2017, when we first started talking about Celtic on this channel, you said Celtic are not a Champions League team. You said that. Now, the thing is, I don't think you can approach this and say wouldn't it be good for us to have a Europa League run? Because that means you've been a failure, either domestically and you've not got in the Champions League, or in the qualifiers and you've been bounced out before the group stages of the Champions League and you've been bounced into a lesser tournament. So I would much rather focus on the Champions League and how we can do that better. The thing is, we're hoping to get from 9th to 24th in that league.
Yes.
To get the playoff.
We're hoping to finish 24th.
Exactly. Listen, that's progress, Kev. That's
progress.
You're then in the playoff, and what will happen is you'll be drawn against one of the teams who has, if say you finish 24th, you will be drawn against one of the teams that has finished between 9th and 23rd. Now, the guys that are up there in 9th, just about edging in towards the Bayern Munichs of this world and Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid, they are still top side. So you go into a playoff, Kev, and it will feel a wee bit like you're going to a gunfight with a water pistol again, because you potentially will be up against one of these top sides again over 2 legs in a playoff. So that's what we're asking for.
What we're asking to do to finish 24th is to back up my view that we're still a Europa League team and beat the Europa League standard teams that we've got that we face.
The ones we can compete with.
If we get the 7 points from the teams that we can compete with, then we'll qualify, we'll finish 24th, 23rd, 22nd, whatever it is, and do what we wanted to do at the start of the season. Look, you're not going to get a cup for that. You're not going to get a trophy. You're not going to, but you'll go like that. That's progress, actually, because we've made it to a knockout stage.
Aye.
Then we'll go like that. Well, then right away you'll go like, right, we need to win a knockout game. We'll probably end up getting somebody like AC Milan who finished 9th on goal difference or something like that.
That's the danger. Now that's the danger. It'll be interesting to see how the playoff draw works in terms of seeding and all that. I'm not quite sure yet if it does, or if it's just like, they put the teams in the draw, they put the teams in the hat, and then whoever gets each other goes and plays 2 legs. That'll be an interesting scenario as well. There's loads to talk about. The reason I brought up Schmeichel was one of the shows I mentioned before. His old fella Peter was on speaking to Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, and Celtic came up a few times. Peter Schmeichel, I don't know if it's an age thing. Kevin seems to have mellowed out. There was obviously big egos back in the day in that Man United dressing room. But he was talking about how Celtic was a perfect move for Kasper, and how he approaches his game. And it's quite clear for me that Kasper Schmeichel isn't coming to Celtic just for his final payday. He wants to do something. What has frustrated me a wee bit is the fact that he's getting a lot of flack for the other night, Kevin. I'm interested to hear what your view on him is, because after the game, I was looking at it, and it's bizarre to say anything about a goalie who's let 7 goals in. If it wasn't for Kasper Schmeichel, we'd have been having a different and even worse discussion today, in my view. I think he made 6 very, very decent saves.
It's 13-1, 14-1 if it was Davy Schmeichel.
Aye. But a lot of people are saying he was murder. He had a poor game.
When you have a look at the expected goals of the goals that they scored for outside the box and from the edge of the box and the sort of the longer range ones, they've all got expected goals of 0.01.
Mm-hmm.
They're all decent strikes. The third one at his near post, everybody says a goalie shouldn't be beat at the near post. Right, to put that off, Alistair Johnson jumps in front of him to try and block the ball. The ball's at an offy pace. No, I'm not going to blame Schmeichel for anything. No,
not for me.
He kept us. If I'm going to say this, and this is a complete, and this is a turnaround, right? If we had drew that paid, if we had drew that game 1 each, and Schmeichel had made those 7 saves, which stopped it from being 14-1, we would be talking about him in terms of Fraser Foster.
Yeah, where's the statue? I know. The Grand Marala, but in German. Yes, you're right. My German was never that great. Sorry, Mrs. Houston. I didn't stick in. Jungle Lion, you're in, and you're first. Rodgers saying he won't change. Don't tell the opponents that. Tell them nothing. Or
I think that's just bravado after the game. That's just bravado after the game. Aye, that's just
protecting the team, protecting himself and his backroom team. Shuggy goals. I just saw the George Galloway, Tommy Sheridan programme. That's one way to throw a grenade into the conversation. Wonderful, well done. The reason
You
I brought
never
it up,
even
Shuggy,
you never even told me you were going to interview George Galloway.
aye, George, gorgeous George. Listen, I've not really discussed it on this. The big thing for me is we've all got different views, right? We've all got different views. George Galloway doesn't share the same view as me on Scottish independence. I want an
And me.
independent Scotland. I've got no issue talking about my political mindset. And on Brexit, I think that we're European, and why take us out of a scenario where there was a really good way of trading with other nations to ensure that jobs and trade came in and left our country. I thought it was a bizarre decision. So absolutely polar opposites when it comes to that. There are other parts of the political spectrum where I agree with him wholeheartedly on Irish. Well, not only Irish republicanism, but to have a united Ireland, hopefully in our lifetime, but also in terms of what's happening in Palestine and Lebanon. If you are talking to someone about that and you speak to someone who has been invested in it, not just financially, but on a humanitarian level, since 1975, what you're going to get, Kev, is a real depth to that knowledge, and that's something I really wanted to tap into with George, and I think he did that. So that was the purpose of it.
There's a lot of things I mean, I've already, for me, when you started this and came to me and says, I need a second voice, I always wanted to go, well, interview folk who have got a Celtic state of mind, whether we agree with a lot of what they're about, then, but you have that conversation with them. And I think George Galloway is one of those who, there's many things that he's done that I completely disagree with, but I'll sit and listen to him. I completely disagree with him on the independence point of view, but he did make a couple of decent points where he was at the time. But now I think he's softening on the whole Scottish independence. Some folk might say that he might just be jumping into he could be swayed at that point. I mean, I've told you before, my perfect guess would be Judas. I want to sit in a room with Judas and go, why? And take it for there.
See, the big thing about that, right, is obviously what I try to do is get the biggest amount of information I possibly can about a subject matter. So when it comes to Celtic, for example, I remember one time speaking on a mainstream channel, and a lot of Rangers fans going about, look at the amount of books he's got. Aye, mate, you read these things, you know what I mean, to kind of feed your brain of information when you're talking about Celtic. Bizarre. But up there somewhere, by the way, and I hope this doesn't result in anybody unsubscribing, I do have that Chick Young book that was written in the 1980s up there with Le Petit Merde, just so that you can get as wide a view of what's happened in the history of Glasgow Celtic, right? But in relation to what would probably be controversial guests, I would never get someone on for the sake of being controversial, just for the clickbait aspect of it.
And that's
never
where
do that.
That's where Judas would be. We would be seen, no matter what my take on getting him to interview him would be. It'd just be seen. It's be seen controversial.
Well, you know who I would who I would like to speak to, and I know it would divide opinion, and I know that when it was announced it would divide opinion on socials, etc. I would like to speak to the type of Celtic player, ex-player Kev, who was a hero when he was a Celtic player, but since his time at Celtic has ended, he's become some kind of a pariah, from messiah to pariah. That type of player, and there's a few of them. There's a few of them out there, and I'm thinking Commons. Andy Walker, I'm thinking Charlie Nicholas, Chris Commons, Davy Provan, maybe even Mark Wilson falls into that category now. Ex-Celts that a lot of Celtic fans don't like for one reason or other, and a big reason is often the way that they speak about Celtic when they leave the football club. So I would love to speak to them and get into their mindset and say, well, we know that David Provan wasn't brought up a Celtic fan. He's spoken about that, right? But all the other guys we just mentioned, and Chris Commons wasn't because he wasn't from up here. All the other ones, though, they were mad Celtic fans, Kev, and actually still are mad Celtic fans. So I would like to get into that state of mind, right? Where did it all go wrong in terms of the relationship between the fans and yourself, and what can you do to make it a wee bit better? So keep your eyes on it. But tonight, the reason I brought that up, actually, a long-winded way of saying it, tonight we have got David Heyman. And David Heyman is someone who I've always had an interest in ever since the Sense of Freedom film. I said this yesterday because my old man introduced me to that. And every single time I could, I watched whatever he was in, from The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas to Taboo. My all-time personal favourite is Twin Town, Kev, just because I was into the whole train spotting thing, and they used to call it the Welsh train spotting. I don't know if you ever watched that film, Twin Town. Did you ever see
I
it?
love it. The corner flags. That corner flags fact is still one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history. And the
Are they in the
fact that they've
bath?
got the guy for the flying pickets. That's a
Oh,
flying
no.
pickets, eh?
Yes,
That's a flying pickets. Aye.
yeah. No, brilliant. So tonight at 6 o'clock on the channel, as always, David Heyman tells his Celtic story, how he's got a Celtic state of mind. And again, we touch on the humanitarian aspect of him setting up a charity to help the less privileged kids all over the world.
Who was the policeman again? What was the Scottish actor that's a policeman?
Dougray
Dougray Scott.
Yep.
And his whole thing about why the policeman had to be a Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Why he had to wear a Rangers top.
I asked him about it.
Aye.
I asked David about it. Yeah, brilliant.
Aye,
Absolutely brilliant. So tune in, but it's all about different views and opinions. I'm never going to have anyone on just for clicks. It's going to result in indie-based guitarists one week and Hollywood actors the next. That's the scope of the Celtic fan base. So please join us. It's been great fun so far. Some cracking guests lined up in the weeks ahead as well. So really looking forward to that. Now, Joe Hamilton, get the team back to smashing it. That's exactly what we're hoping will happen this weekend. And this weekend, Kev, it's a trip to Dingwall, but it's an early kickoff. So again, you going about the Celtic fans to get up to Dingwall for a 12 o'clock kickoff results in people leaving from all corners of Scotland, from Ireland at the god awful times to go up and watch our team. Aberdeen play Hearts and Rangers play St Johnstone. I've got no doubt Rangers will get maximum points. Aberdeen v Hearts, I'm expecting Aberdeen to get maximum points. Alan Shearer, who someone wrote a song about, and we'll get back to that in a moment, has waded into the debate about who's going to finish second, and indeed, he's gone a stage further. This is clickbait, and said Aberdeen could win the league. I think October's going to be an interesting one in that argument, in that Celtic play Aberdeen rather at Celtic Park. Aberdeen play Rangers at Pittodrie. I think we'll revisit that conversation after those two fixtures, Kev, and we'll say, where are we moving into November in terms of the league title race? But again, we've seen it in the past. Teams have done well in the first half of a season. They drop off due to the lack of squad depth, etc. And that has happened. Well, it happened with Aberdeen. But it leads us into Alan Shearer. You don't really listen to what he has to say anyway, do you?
No, but I did read what he says, and again, it's just somebody commenting on the Scottish game that doesn't really have a clue about the Look, he'll have an opinion about the Scottish game, which he'll probably think it's a farmers' league, which is the general opinion that they've got, and it won't be. I don't think he's got a respectful opinion of the Scottish game, even though he's sitting with Joe Hart now, and Joe Hart would probably tell him quite a few home truths about the Scottish game. But for him to say that Aberdeen could actually win the league, I don't believe Aberdeen will finish second. Again, this comes down to squad size, and even it doesn't matter what we think about Rangers and their squad. Every one of those Rangers players that played last night or play for Rangers would walk into that Aberdeen side and would walk into any other club in Scotland. That is just a fact of life.
Can I pitch it slightly differently to you then, Kev, right? Obviously, they've done remarkably well. They've done well since Dylan came in. Brilliant run, absolutely brilliant run. If they're able to somehow get to the January period, still being up there, maybe no unbeaten, but still being up there, fighting for that kind of second position. At that point, Kev, I think the proof's in the pudding. If Aberdeen want to then push on, they need to go into the transfer market in January. They probably need to go into debt to do so. It's at that point, Kev, where it really will separate the true contenders from the other guys that have just had a decent run of form.
It is, and they have made a really, really decent start, and they could cause us problems. again, I haven't really seen much of them. I haven't really seen much of them at all. But I was talking to a guy last night who watched them against Dundee, and he went like, says Dundee were the better side. Aberdeen just found a way to win. The fact is
They're
they've lost
grinding results out, aren't they?
the fact is they've lost a big striker to January now, who's made an impressive start as well. They've got Kevin Nisbet there. Nisbet's on a sort of redemption curve. We just need to wait and see. Their acid test will be when they come to us, and we take it from there. Again, I can see them being the third best team in Scotland by quite a distance because of the run that they've already built up. Again, depending on injuries and suspensions, but I can't see them finishing second at all.
Right.
No,
We're on the
I'm
subject.
I'm not there. I'm not there.
We're on the subject of Scottish football. I want to throw something else at you, Kev, before I ask you what your predicted lineup is for the weekend and why. So anybody that's dropping out, obviously explain to me if it's anything to do with Champions League. There's a few injury concerns around Carter Vickers, of course, and Alistair Johnson as well. But before I do that, obviously anyone who has an interest in Scottish football will know that another club, and a club that we faced in a Scottish Cup final in Ange Postecoglou's final game in charge of Celtic, are now staring down the barrel of financial ruin in Inverness Carly Thistle. And it's been a real dip, a rapid demise, Kev, a real rapid demise in respect to a club who had, built up from 1994 with the amalgamation of everything, a real success story. Let's not forget, everything that they did since 94. Some of it we were on the wrong end of, getting into cup finals, winning a cup, getting into the top league and being a very, very difficult opponent. Now, they're a shambles financially. And we've got a member club now potentially going into administration. They've had to obviously use social media, for example, to try and raise funds. They've got a GoFundMe. Duncan Ferguson has come out and said he's not getting any wages to try and assist the fight. So there's a couple of things with this. This is something that can happen to many clubs in Scotland through a period of bad financial management, Kev. Thankfully, we are managed really, really well in terms of the financial aspect of the football club. The other aspect of it is, if a club is in financial distress and it is going down that slippery slope whereby there simply won't be enough investment to save them, and they go into administration, and that's looking likely. And once they go in there, obviously the CVA has to be agreed to come back out of administration, and if not, the club could be liquidated, right? Would we not, as football fans or as the authority of Scottish football, rather find a way to make sure the club doesn't go down that route? And what I was thinking about is there's issues with dual ownership. Why allow a club to disappear, right, and vanish and be liquidated? Why not allow one of the bigger clubs, one of the clubs that actually have the financial acumen, to use them as a nursery operation? It's something we've spoken about time and time again. Having nursery clubs, Kev, there's no reserve league. At the moment, there's rules that will prevent Celtic from doing that. But would they rather a club died and were liquidated than a club like Celtic actually being able to take them under their wing in a business sense as a nursery club and have a reserve team, a hybrid team of youth players and players who are not in the first team squad for whatever reason, playing competitive football that isn't in the fifth tier of Scottish football? Is that realistic? I don't think Scottish football authorities would allow it to happen, but would it not be better for everybody involved?
It would be, but I always go back to, right, the creation of Inverness Caledonian Thistle was an amalgamation between two clubs, which basically the SFA and the Scottish Football League at that point basically told them, if you two merge, you are going to get a place in the Scottish League.
Yeah.
And so they were a sort of Frankenstein club, which basically split a community support in Inverness. Even though
So we've got
Inverness is
Frankenstein and we've got zombies. There's a real horror theme in Scottish football, isn't there?
So they were they were already starting. They were already starting from a low base because you basically lost all the. I need to get this right.
One
Inverness
set of the
Cal.
fans
One
just
set of the
said
fans
no.
completely.
Yeah,
One set. I can't remember what ones. I think it was. The Caledonian ones that have basically went.
because Charlie Christie
No,
played for Inverness, didn't he?
he played for Thistle.
Yeah,
Was it
Ryan's
Thistle that
old
he
fella.
played for? Yeah.
Yeah,
So they were already starting off from a position where basically, if you have a look at that there's probably a time there where a lot of fans then started following Celtic and Rangers and
right.
travelling down the road rather than going to see their local club
Hmm.
up there because that local club had been took away from them and this Frankenstein had
The
been created.
team, they didn't have the emotional attachment
There
to
was
the
no
new
emotional
entity.
attachment
Yeah,
whatsoever. So what they hoped would actually happen would be if that team became successful, which they have been they have been very successful. You'll get a generation of fans from round about that area. It hasn't happened, and this is the reason that they find themselves in the ball that they find themselves in. You would think. I do believe that the SPFL and the SFL do everything to save Inverness, Caledonia, and Thistle because it's their creation. And they do not want to see a team going out of business. I think the Celtic B team should be in the pyramid setup anyway,
where
and
promotion is allowed.
where
Absolutely.
promotion is allowed.
And
Again,
it's
I've
a
been
more of a hybrid team, Kev, where you've got the youths, but you've also got guys on the fringes of the Celtic team who week in, week out are playing a game of football. Because how often have you looked at a squad and thought that's not healthy for a 24 or a 25-year-old footballer? I mean, where is Odin Home going to get a game of football?
you just have to have a look at the amount of players that move between Ross County and Inverness.
Mm-hmm.
Because they stay in that area or they've had to move up to that area. I think you have a look at Ross County. Ross County seem to have a decent enough support in that wee local area. And Inverness has never really caught on. And I think that's because it's the way that they were formed. The way that they were formed completely stunted that club at birth. Yes, you've had the guys who have jumped on the bandwagon and went to the cup finals and stuff like that, and the 3,000 that came down that night that they went ballistic and cost John Barnes his job. They've had great nights, but they've never had a sustainable base for
Yeah,
that to keep on going. And the fact that the Celtic and Rangers B teams are no in the pyramid says more about the parochial nature of the bowling club members who run Scottish football and
mm-hmm.
run Scottish football clubs. That says more about them than the fact that our B team's not in the pyramid system.
If they don't allow that to happen, Kev, then it's unlikely they will ever bend the rules for a club like Celtic to have a nursery club within the pyramid either.
No, they're never
I
going to
think
do
that's
that.
a big point
Aye.
I would take from that.
When you have a look
Um,
at the Lowland League clubs, even then they didn't want Celtic and they didn't want Celtic. Oh, Rangers on win it anyway. They didn't want Celtic there. They didn't want
no,
Celtic in the Lowland League. And I went to the game against East Stirling, and some of the shouts for East Stirling fans were actually quite funny. And basically, that's what they were saying. They didn't want us there. They didn't want Celtic in that
see,
setup whatsoever. And even then, I'm sitting there watching this game, going, I do not see the benefit of Celtic being in this setup whatsoever either.
I know, and you've then got to say, are the players benefiting? And if not, and if we're not producing enough players from that setup, then it's something that needs to be looked at. But what I would say, if the formation of that football club happened in 1994, they've had 30 years, Kev, to build a fan base. So
It's
even
not
if
happened.
at the time, I know, but what have they done to try? This is the thing I always go back to, right? So they've had a cup final. Where's all the fans that went to that cup final? Did you have a database? Have you been tapping into it? Have you been, generating a community? Because if not, this is what happens. Because when the chips are down, you don't have anything to tap into to try and save your football club. So 30 years is a long time to try and build that up. If they've not done it, then they're going to find it very, very difficult.
Again, then again, you look at Ross County's stadium. Ross County's ground is in the middle of Dingwall,
Mhm.
right? It's a very, very small, very, very small place, but it's a whole Black Isle. It's the Black Isle team. you look at where Inverness's ground is, it's outside the town centre, it's underneath a bridge, it's cold, it's half-baked, basically, sitting there, eh? It always seems to have been a wee bit doomed for failure it started off. Whereas both Inverness's clubs' grounds to start off with were in the city centre, in the town. They were there. There was a community aspect.
Part of the hub. Yeah.
It's the same way my local club, Stirling Albion. As soon as they moved away from the town centre down to Fort Bank, their attendances have utterly dwindled because they do not get that passing trade, basically. Eh?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things, Kev. I brought it up. We're playing Ross County, obviously. It's and Inverness are a team that we've had some famous and infamous results against. So I do find it interesting, but I do agree with you. Scottish football is not built that way, where forward-thinking ideas will be embraced and they'll think, right, let's save the club, and this is a good way of saving it. It's not going to happen.
But you listen to supporters of some teams when we send players on loan to them.
I know.
We didn't want that.
We're not a nursery for you guys, absolutely. Aberdeen were of that view when was it Adam Montgomery went and they were citing Liam Scales and Christie. We're not a team that's going to develop your players. No, I know there's a real backlash. But in relation to that, I think what the football authorities need to realise, and also the local authorities, is that a football team in the heart of a community means that other businesses in the footprint area of that football stadium benefit massively from the footfall that goes to the games, Kev. And I think there needs to be a double-pronged attack on this to ensure that football teams do well. That's why I get frustrated when football clubs turn away fans away. The away fans, the footfall, they're going into pubs and restaurants, etc. On a European night at Celtic Park, every Champions League game for the business economy is worth something like £1.5 million. It's unbelievable, Kev. And that's money spent outside the Celtic Park. That's the adjacent buildings and restaurants, cafes, and even shops.
Look at the supporters clubs. You look at the Celtic supporters clubs, which are all over Scotland. They give their boozers money that they leave from. The takeaways round about the boozers money that leaves from. They give bus companies money. There's a whole financial train that Celtic give to the whole of Scotland.
Totally.
And it's just ignored, basically. Eh?
It's ignored, and football fans are still kind of viewed as second-class citizens. Inverness, whatever the local authority is around about that area, need to obviously do everything they can to save the football club. Will they? Probably not. Jungle Lion, 18 million, you say. Need a bigger boat, PJ. That is, of course, the fact that over the last wee while, after the last week or so, Celtic State of Mind have smashed through 18 million viewers on YouTube. Thanks, every single one of you, for your support. What do we ask you to do? Give us thumbs-ups on the old videos. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy what we do. Comment. Let us know that we're talking good, bad, or indifferent. You agree, you disagree. Give us advice, guidance. Give us your own views, and spread the word, basically. Join us on social media. Let's get involved in the discussion. I do read things that are added after the live show as well, and I do take a lot of it on board. And of course, I get emails from a lot of you, which I love hearing from people that tune into Acsom, Kev, from all over the world. And it's a community that we have created. So 18 million, what does that mean in terms of Celtic fan media, let's say? There's no other channel on the planet that's dedicated to creating Celtic content other than Celtic themselves, who have had 18 million views on YouTube. So thanks, every single one of you, for getting involved. And if you want to come along and see us live, which is another kind of thread of engaging with fans, Kev, then come and see us live. Gordon Strachan and John Hartson. I think it hit 47 or 48 tickets this morning remaining for the big one. And as I say, I'm just going to throw a grenade and go and sit in the audience and let Gordon and John run the night. Gordon Strachan's brilliant live. He is the one and only Celtic manager to get us to 2 successive last 16 since the Champions League's inception in 1992. We're going to be asking him how he managed to do that on a budget. Big Oz. Is it the same guy that was in Off We're Saying Pet? Loved that show. We dust ourselves down and go again. That result midweek will have no bearing on our season, so we move on. Yeah, absolutely. But also, it could be that moment, Kev. The worst moment of the season. Don't let it happen again. Let it fuel your fire, both for the management team, but also for the players as well. And Stevie boy, Good to see you, Stevie. I can't quite put my finger on it, but for some strange reason, my mood has lightened ever so slightly. I don't know. Obviously, on the night that we got absolutely hammered by Borussia Dortmund, Kev, a strange thing happened on a Celtic State of Mind, and I mentioned this yesterday, right? Now, you've seen some kind of backlash after a game, after a particularly bad result, and to be honest with you, the games fell into that horrible lockdown season, right, whereby people just wanted to come on and vent, and that's understandable. And the flip side of that is a lot of Rangers fans came on to gloat, and obviously it's a full-time job trying to block them so that they don't affect the happiness and the enjoyment of any other Celtic fans within the comments field. So we were sitting after the Dortmund game, Kev, and generally speaking, after a normal game, you probably get about 1,000 live watching it on YouTube. At the moment, we've got over 800 watching this Friday afternoon show, right? So it was really weird because it jumped from 1,000 to 3,500. Next thing you know, it's 6,000, 8,000. It actually went to 10.6 thousand live viewers. And that shows you just how frustrated a lot of Celtic fans were, where they wanted to talk about it and say this isn't good enough and that's not good enough, but also showed the obsessive nature of the fans of a certain other football club who thought it was a good idea to come on and give us dogs abuse. No many of them in today. The urban culture reckons it'll be 3-0 at the weekend. Kev, what's your prediction? And give me your lineup.
I'll give you the lineup just based on, I mean, obviously I think Rodgers will probably be doing his press conference in the next half hour or so, or maybe he's already started it. I don't know what time it is. So my lineup is it'll be Kasper Schmeichel in goals. I've got a funny feeling that Alistair Johnson will sit out and Tony Ralston will come in. The two centre halves will be the same. They'll be Trusty and Scales. Can't see Narovsky coming in for that. Left back, I fully expect Baye to actually start there, mainly because I think Greg Taylor's maybe got a wee slight knock, and it'll be a good game to take him out actually after Wednesday night as well. And they got took off at half time on last week as well. In the midfield, I think Atati is going to start just because Atati will start. Callum McGregor and Engels. I think that will be the three it starts in the middle. James Forrest is going to come in. I've got a feeling that.
Is that down to Kuhn's poor performance?
No, I think it's just down to the number of games that we're playing. Ida will get a start, and my Dyson. So that's my game. I think he might, depending on the game's going, McCowan might get an early shout to come on, maybe for McGregor, maybe for Engels. But I can see that being the team, and the only changes are really down to injuries, and I think Kuhn maybe needs a wee bit took out the firing line, and this is a perfect game for Forrest. I think it could be a bit of a grind, and it'll hopefully get the first score early enough so it doesn't become that sort of grind. But these 12 o'clock Sunday kickoffs are usually quite soulless games, just due to the time of the kickoff and that. So I think we maybe need a wee kick start, or either that we could get into a wee bit of quicksand and it could be a bit of a slog.
Would it concern you then, Kev, looking at your starting 11, which I agree with on the most part, would it concern you that 3 of the back 4 are second choice?
No.
You think they're good enough?
No.
Because obviously we made a raft of changes, didn't we, previously, and it didn't quite work out against Falkirk. So with that in mind, I think at the time I said Falkirk and a couple of the teams at the top of the Championship are probably as good as some of the teams in our division. I know Ross County are sitting 7th. It's not like they're down in the depths of the division.
We can't say, look at the last week against St Johnstone. We can't say against St Johnstone, look at the players we brung on. If they started the game, you wouldn't be surprised. So we can't go, oh, we need to be worried that there's 3 of that back 4 second choices. No, we bought them for a reason. We bought them for squad depth. We've got 8 games quite quick. We've got to have a wee bit of rotation there. And I think in the back 4, the rotation is actually there because of injuries more than anything.
Yeah, I certainly
And
with AJ and
I mean,
CCV and Taylor as well. Niggly
folks
injury.
say you didn't rush CCV back, not at all. You don't rush Alistair Johnson back because you have got, it's a domestic game against Ross County, and Tony Ralston should actually give you a shift there.
Well, he
And
should be. You know what, Kev? If he's a second choice, he should be able to play against anybody in Scotland,
aye,
any team.
and by you've brung him in for a reason to give Greg Taylor a rest at certain games, and this is a perfect one. And the boy he played really, really well last week when he came on. He done all right on Tuesday night in another messier performance. So let him go and experience Dingwall.
My passes, who I thought got pass marks for me. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Kasper Schmeichel in goals, even though he conceded 7, he got a pass mark for me against Borussia Dortmund. I thought when Valle came on, he done enough, Kev, for me. I think similarly with Hatate, he looked as though he was trying to create, and there was a different dynamic in the midfield when he came on, so he gets a pass mark for me. And Liam Scales, I thought Liam Scales, generally speaking, from a starting point of view, got pass marks for me. So 4 of them. But if you go into Borussia Dortmund and 4 players get pass marks and only 2 of them played the full 90, you're going to get hammered, and that's what happened. A couple of wee comments before we go, Kev. 573 versus 13, Hail, Hail, PJ and Kev. Absolutely. Andy Lee says, great song. I think at that point he was talking about the Greenfields of France that you were referring to, which was brought into the public conscience again with Finbar Fury and Christy Dignam when they were on the Late Late Show. Unbelievable. I'm sure everybody on the comments has seen it. If not, check it out on YouTube. But that leads Andy to say, no, that's the wrong one. That leads Andy to say, Kev, I had a listen to the Celtic Cross Collective yesterday, mate. Brilliant stuff. Kev, you premiered it during the charity weekender at the end of last year. And obviously the EP was released on a digital level at that time, and you were raising funds for wee Jamie Tierney. Where's the Celtic Cross Collective going from there? What are you doing with the Henrik Larsson EP? Give us your plans. What's happening?
We're supporting Oasis at Murrayfield. No, there's a world exclusive. No, I mean the EP's still there. Please still stream it and please download it on Apple Music, because everything that's made from the digital version will go to wee Jamie's journey. So it's still there, it's still live, it's still getting clicks every so often, and it's quite good. Follow us on Instagram, just search the Celtic Cross Collective, and we'll bring you up to date. Our plans are, me and you discussed this the other day, Paul, we will have a vinyl version of the Rastafarian at one point after you do what you can't announce yet. So in the very near future, there will be a vinyl version of the lead track on the EP, which is called the Rastafarian, which is about Henrik Larsson, which sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like, what other folk, hang with what it sounds like. Where we are at the moment, we're still active. We're just looking to get back into the rehearsal studio. We've demoed maybe about 4 or 5 other songs. So it is going to be an ongoing thing. We want to play live, but again, we need to get back into the rehearsal studio and work out a couple of things what we're going to do. Everything that we do will be to raise money for charity. It's no for any sort of ego massage or anything like that. It's to give me, Jazzy and Andy a night out away for the Wains and have a couple of pints and behave like rock and roll stars for a night.
Absolutely.
On the
And
stage.
just to clarify, it's not Jazzy Jeff you're talking about, is it?
No, it's your brother. It's your brother on the drums.
He is a drummer.
He is. So that's what we're planning today. And thanks for your support, Paul, for saying to us we'll try and get the single version out there. Because at the time when we done the streaming version, there was a couple of people who came to us and says, are you going to do a vinyl version? But because it was for charity and we didn't want, basically the cost of it was just far too much at the time. And it would have stopped the money going to charity. So we decided just to do it on the streaming version. But it's never going to die. It's not as if that music that we
No.
released on the Henrik Larsson EP has got a shelf life. I mean, there you go. Celtic are releasing the 7 years Henrik Larsson book. I've wrote the best book of poetry ever about Henrik Larsson, and I've wrote the best EP about Henrik
Ever.
Larsson ever.
Yeah.
So there we go. And once that promotion comes out, we'll maybe try and do something with that and try to hijack what Celtic are doing.
100%. What we're going to basically do, Acsom, it's all about the culture of Celtic Football Club and its fans, our fans. And, in the past, we released The Glory and the Dream, which was a digital-only release. What we decided to do, because this whole thing's gone full circle, Kev. I've gone from being a music fan who
I like
the
that.
streets met the cramps.
I like that. I'm having that.
Kev will use that as a quote on the poster. But the plan was we would do the digital release of The Glory and the Dream. I've spoken about the whole story behind that, which is really intriguing. Digital release with a music video, and it's out there, and it's been out there for a while, and it's done really, really well. But what we have done is we've started planning a release, a vinyl release, Kev, like we're saying, limited edition, 500 copies, something along those lines, green vinyl. Need to get all the permission from the songwriters and the performers and all that, get it redesigned, get it out there. And what happens is we can have it on our Acsom shop online, links underneath this video, but we can also have it at our live events. And if people see a vinyl record that they want to buy, there it is, and we'll have a B-side on it. Following on from that, if you tuned into the Paul Quinn This Is Acsom episode a few weeks ago, you will know that Paul wrote a fantastic song about Jimmy Johnston. And it's brilliant. And it's a different style, really, of song than The Glory and the Dream. So we're talking to Paul about getting that out as a single around about St. Patrick's Day next year. And once we do that, then obviously that will be released digitally and via a promo video. We will be looking at the Celtic Cross Collective first release. And the thing with that, Kev, is you then have a Henrik Larsson book and a Henrik Larsson single. You can marry them up. You can come along to one of the bigger Acsom events and sing songs and promote all that and be part of the whole Acsom thing, which has been created by the community that tunes in every single day.
Definitely, it's this community gave me the platform and the confidence to actually do what I'm doing out with talking rubbish about Celtic.
Kev, you've now been a published poet, published author, and you're going to have a record. Now, if somebody had say to you 10 years ago, Kev, by the time you're in your kind of late 40s, you'll have a book out and a record out, I don't think you'd have believed them. But that's just
definitely no. No, definitely no. With regards to the EP, as I say, Spotify, iTunes, please stream it, listen to it, enjoy it. We do have a big go at Alan Shearer.
Yes, you
and
do.
It's based on the song that we used to sing when Henrik Larsson played for us. And we do have a big go at Graham Souness.
Oh, an even bigger go at Graham Souness.
We do have an even bigger go at Graham Souness. He almost gets a song to himself.
And it's not unmerited, let's be honest.
Does Mr. Souness, So listen to it. It's a bit of different Celtic tinged music for what you would usually listen to. But I think it's great. I really do. I'm not going to. Again, music's divides opinion, but I think what me, Andy, and your brother Jazzy done were superb. And they two are the actual talent. I just come up and shout down a mic every so often, but especially they two turned an idea into something that's absolutely fabulous, and I'm really, really looking forward to working with them again.
Yep. Watch this space. It'll all be on the Acsom platforms. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Enjoy your Friday night. Tune in at 6 o'clock for David Heyman. Really looking forward to that one. And then at the weekend, we'll be covering the game, as we always do, half an hour before kickoff. Thank you all for your continued support. And thank you to Kevin Graham for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.